princess destined for the crown, but condemned to live without freedom.
A handsome and arrogant prince who turned her love into torment.
A heart that burned with jealousy until it brushed against madness.
A king dead in his youth, and a queen broken forever.
Turned into a god, and a woman remembered as Joanna the Mad. At the end of the 15th century, Spain was rising as a power. The Catholic monarchs had united kingdoms, conquered territories, and opened the path toward a vast empire. Every child born of that union was not free. They were part of a destiny written in royal ink.
On that chessboard of power and alliances stood Joanna, a princess who did not seek a throne and who never imagined the weight the world would place upon her shoulders.
History reserved for her a strange and cruel place. A place where the line between love, power, madness blurred forever.
Her name was carved into Spain's memory of this, but not as queen, nor as mother, nor as wife. History remembered her with a cursed title, Joanna the Mad.
But Joanna was not born with that cursed name. Before the madness, she was a child, a princess, a daughter of kings.
Because every tragedy begins with innocence, and hers with invisible chains that marked her from the very beginning.
Before becoming legend, Joanna of Castile was only a child. Daughter of the Catholic monarchs, she grew up in a world where free will did not exist. She was intelligent, educated, a brilliant mind, trapped in a destiny others had written for her.
Raised in the rigidity of court, between prayers, protocols, and cold stares, Joanna learned early that the crown weighed more than the soul. Neither her laughter nor her tears belonged to her. They were property of the monarchy.
Her mother, Isabella, the great queen, demanding to the inhuman. Her father, Ferdinand, a strategist who saw his children as pawns on a board. Joanna was not a daughter, not a woman. She was a political move, a sacrifice to secure Spain's power.
Free? Never. They dressed Joanna in duty and adorned her with invisible chains. Melancholic, quiet, her heart already in shadows, long before she knew love. Because in that family, to feel too much was almost a sin.
And so, Joanna left Castile for a destiny that was never her own. She left behind the dry, harsh land of her childhood to arrive in Flanders, a stranger world of dazzling palaces and unfamiliar gazes. A journey that led not only to another kingdom, but to her own damnation.
There awaited Philip of Habsburg, the handsome, a prince who seemed sculpted by the gods, tall, attractive, owner of a smile capable of bending wills. But behind that perfect facade burned the arrogance of one who lives only for his own pleasure.
The wedding was a spectacle, streets adorned, bells ringing, a banquet that seemed to defy heaven with its excess. Spain and Flanders celebrated a political union. But at the heart of the festivities, a young queen trembled between love and misery.
Joanna gazed at him with devotion, the passion of one who believes for the first time she has found her destiny. And yes, she fell in love as only the condemned do, without measure, without restraint, without salvation. Meanwhile, Philip was already weaving his web of lovers among the ladies of the court. For to him, Joanna was nothing more than a piece in the game of power and flesh.
Thus began the marriage, with public kisses and private wounds. A love that for Joanna was absolute, and for Philip, merely one whim among many. A union sealed in gold, but built on glass about to shatter. Joanna loved him with an intensity that bordered on madness. For her, Philip was not just a husband. He was the center of her existence, the air she breathed, the only reason for her life. And perhaps that overwhelming passion was her curse.
Because Philip did not share that devotion. Yes, he was handsome, elegant, magnetic, but also arrogant and cruel. The court knew it. Mistresses followed him like flies to honey. Joanna, jealous to the bone, once ripped the hair from a lady-in-waiting whom she caught gazing at him.
In public, Joanna tried to maintain composure, but in private, the outbursts were unbearable. She locked herself with Philip, confronted him with screams, with tears, and he, instead of consoling her, responded with coldness, with mockery, with silence.
While Joanna kept watch over him night after night, Philip slipped away into the arms of others. The palace became a prison, halls stalked by Joanna's burning eyes, searching for her husband, fearing every shadow, suspecting every feminine laugh.
Absolute love turned into torment. Joanna, ever more obsessed, sank into uncontrollable jealousy, and Philip, indifferent, deepened her humiliation. Her heart burned, while his was made of ice, a brutal clash that would open the final crack toward tragedy. The days in the palace became an endless storm. Joanna burned in jealousy, Philip drowned in pleasures, and between them the crown trembled, as if it sensed disaster.
Each scene of passion and fury, each scream in the corridors was the prelude to something darker, because no love can survive on tears and humiliation.
1506. Philip the Handsome was barely 28 when the shadow claimed him. Some say it was a sudden fever. Others whispered that poison had slipped into his cup. The mystery was never resolved, but the truth remains. Death came far too soon.
And Joanna watched him waste away in bed, undone by sweats and delirium. The man who had been her obsession, her torment, her god, was fading like a candle in a storm. The silence in the court was unbearable. Restless nobles, murmuring clerics, soldiers awaiting orders, all held their breath, except her.
Joanna never left his side. She held his hand, wept on his chest, begged heaven to give him back his life. But neither her love, nor her prayers, nor her desperation could stop the inevitable. Philip died, and with him, the last spark of sanity in Joanna's heart also died.
The prince who had everything fell like any mortal, and the queen who loved him beyond reason was broken forever. That day, Castile lost its king. But Joanna lost much more. She lost her mind.
Death did not separate Joanna from Philip. It chained her to him even tighter.
Because where others saw only a corpse, she still saw the man she loved. And she was not willing to let him go.
Joanna could not let him go. Philip was dead, but in her heart, he still breathed. She refused to bury him. She refused to let him go. And so began the most macabre procession Spain remembers.
A cortege of shadows moved through the night. Guards, monks, courtiers, all following a queen who carried not a crown, but a coffin as her banner. They did not travel by day. No, only by night, when the world slept, as if sunlight itself could steal away the only thing she still loved.
Joanna walked beside the coffin, touching it, caressing it, as if the wood might give back the warmth of her beloved. And again, she ordered it opened. She needed to see him, to be sure he was still there. The pale face, the rotting flesh, the unbearable stench, none of it mattered. She still saw him as beautiful, hers eternal.
Jealous even of the dead, she forbade any woman from approaching the coffin. Not nuns, not maids, not even the saints of the convent. Because in her sickened mind, she feared that others might steal her love, even though that love was already just a corpse.
Through the roads of Castile marched a broken queen, a widow, incapable of releasing the man she loved into madness. No power, no church, no tomb could separate her from Philip.
And so, she carried him as if death were nothing but an obstacle. A coffin turned into a prison. A corpse turned into a god. And a queen turned into a shadow, consumed by a love that no longer belonged to this world.
The court wasted no time exploiting her pain. Her father, Ferdinand the Catholic, and us, and later her own son, Charles V, found in her fragility the perfect excuse. They called her mad, they declared her incapable of ruling, and so the Queen of Castile was stripped of her throne.
It was not love they saw in her tears, but weakness. Not devotion in her obsession, but madness, and they locked her away like an animal within the cold walls of Tordesillas. 47 years of silence, of solitude, of oblivion.
Joanna lived half a century in confinement, watched by gods, forgotten by her kingdom, stripped of everything except her grief. The world changed beyond those walls were ludo, but for her, time stopped on the night Philip died.
Even as an old woman, consumed by shadow, she still murmured his name. Philip, Philip, Philip. Like a cursed prayer that chained her until her last breath.
Joanna of Castile, called the Mad, was not only a queen broken by love, she was also a victim of power, of politics, and of a history that never allowed her to be free.
What was Joanna really? A woman consumed by madness, or a wife who loved too much in a world that could not tolerate excessive love? Her story is not only one of passion, but also of power, of manipulation, of a kingdom that preferred to lock her away rather than listen to her.
They called her mad. They stripped her of the throne, of freedom, of life. But behind that cursed nickname lay something far more uncomfortable. A woman who refused to accept death, who defied the grave, who clung to love even as it rotted in her hands.
Perhaps Joanna was not mad. Perhaps she was too human for a crown that only understood politics and ambition. Her fragility became her chain, and her obsession, her eternal sentence.
In the end, who was more cruel? Joanna, with her desperate love, or a kingdom that shut her away for half a century in the shadows, while history reduced her to a single word: mad.
Joanna of Castile was not only the mad woman, she was a queen broken by love, by betrayal, by power, and by solitude. A woman who, even today, still murmurs in Spain's memory the name of Philip, like an eternal echo of passion and tragedy.
She loved beyond death, and in that love, she lost her reason. That is how history named her forever, Joanna the Mad.